Here we are a few days before the beginning of impeachment trial number two for Donald Trump. Um, so the question is, he's out of office. Can someone not in office be impeached? Well, it'd be great to say yes or no, but it's not quite so clear. First off, this is almost an entirely political decision. There have been two cases here where someone in office, not in office, has been impeached. William Blount was a senator from Tennessee, engaged in an open and shut case of conspiring with American Indian tribes and the British in such a way as to increase the value of his family's not inconsiderable amount of land. This appears to have been a straight money deal, but it would still give the British and several American Indian tribes a great deal of hold over the United States, over the western part of the United States. So in 1797, a letter that Blount wrote ended up in John Adams' hands. Adams turned it over to the Senate, goes to the House, and the House decides, well, gosh, this guy deserves to be impeached, and so they impeach him. Now, it was a spirited debate, but the whole thing is that the House, by majority vote, decided that a senator, who can be, a member of the representative of the people, can be removed through impeachment. And so that makes it kind of interesting. The Senate, Blount resigns from the Senate, so he becomes an ex-official. Can you therefore try and maybe convict and somebody who's no longer an official? The vote was narrow, and it took about 2 years for all this to shake out. But in January 11th, 1799, the Senate decides that we're not going to convict Blount. But the trial was still held, and evidence was still presented. And after a while, it's a little bit hard to tell whether or not the votes to acquit were voted because they thought, well, this is unconstitutional, or because they thought, well, Blount doesn't deserve to be convicted. So it's not quite clear exactly what happened here. This is not a clear precedent. So on one hand, the House votes to convict a representative. On the other hand, or votes to impeach a representative. And on the other hand, the Senate doesn't convict. There's a second case, a fellow by the name of William Belknap, who was Grant's Secretary of War. Now, Belknap was an incredibly corrupt, in fact, his whole family were incredibly corrupt, and they took large sums of money out of the War Department and stuck it in their pockets. Okay, this was an open and shut case. There was no question that Belknap had done these things, and so Belknap resigns, and about the same day, the House of Representatives, despite the fact that he resigned, impeaches him. So we have two precedents here. The House, in one instance, impeaches a sitting senator who's soon going to be not sitting. In this case, they impeach someone who's no longer a member of the government. So, that's pretty clear that the House feels that the powers of impeachment are very broad, and those are the precedents. The Senate had this long debate, and I've read it, and it is lengthy. And then there's a vote, and there's actually two key votes here. The first one, and this is in 1876, was a 37-29 vote that the Senate could try someone who's not in office. Okay, and so it was 37-29. That's not a 2/3 vote, but that's enough to get the trial going. So the Senate agrees that somebody who is not in office, or is no longer in office, can be tried. And the trial went forward. They didn't have enough votes. They didn't have the 2/3 they need to convict, but they had a majority. And so I would say that basically the Belknap case says that you can try somebody who's out of office, and the Blount case kind of says that. So, it's a little, it's not as strong as you would like it, but you know, it's I think it's reasonably clear that the senators in the 1790s and the senators in the 1870s all felt that a representative could be tried. Somebody who is no longer in office, an ex-representative or an ex-office holder, can be tried. So, if we boil it down here, the House has voted that an elected representative can be impeached, right? It has voted that an ex-official can be impeached. The Senate voted once that an ex-official or representative cannot be impeached. At least it seems that way with Blount. But once they vote that an ex-official can be impeached. So, if it's kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I think that the majority of the decisions here goes to the idea that that an ex-official can be impeached and tried. It's a two-step process. I don't think there's any question that the precedents say that the House can impeach someone. I just don't see how you can argue that one. The only question is, can the Senate try? And here we're kind of 50-50 or 55-45. But I would say that, particularly based on the Belknap case, that indeed the Senate can try. The Senate voted very clearly. So the majority of the Senate, almost 60% of the Senate, says very clearly that we can try Belknap, and they did. And so, as a result, I think the precedent bends in the direction of allowing, the trial to go forward. And if the trial goes forward, then they can vote yes and they can convict. Otherwise, there's no point in having a trial go forward. The key British precedent is with a fellow by the name of Warren Hastings. He was the first Governor General of India. The British had held India for a number of years by this time, and he's the guy in charge. Some of the folks, and there's a lot of political, pulling and tugging in this one. It's in many ways this is more political than it is criminal or indictable impeachment or things such as that. But Warren Hastings is the ex-governor general of India. He made enemies he shouldn't have made. He was impeached and tried after he had resigned the post. 4 years later, they impeach him. Parliament impeaches him. And they try him. And the trial takes 7 years. And, it's quite something. Now, the important part of this for us is not just that this is a British precedent. Of course, British precedents are generally good in American law. The important part of this is that this goes on while the Constitution is being written. It goes on while ratification of the Constitution is being debated. Everybody knew about this. This was a big deal, a very big deal. Now, you can go back in the newspapers at the time and find all kinds of reference to what's going on in England. And so, the people who wrote the Constitution and the people who ratified the Constitution knew about the Hastings trial. There are all kinds of safeguards in the Constitution against impeachment being used capriciously, or unfairly and things such as that. If the founders had wanted to stop an ex-official from being impeached, they would have put it into the Constitution, and they didn't. And so, as a result, I think the strongest conclusion you can come to is that an impeachment of an ex-official is perfectly legitimate. It's a political decision. Jerry Ford said one time when President Ford was the leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives that the House can impeach anybody on anything. It's a political decision. And the Senate can convict anybody on anything. And I think that, the cases that we have in American history and British history indicate precisely that. And the basic rule behind impeachment, the basic idea behind impeachment, dates back in the 1300s, is that impeachment is what you do when you have no other means of obtaining justice. And that strikes me as a pretty good rule. It's a safety valve. It's a measure. It's a check and balance. There are people who do things and get away with them. And so, in America, the punishment is you've only got two punishments. One is you can be removed from office, and the second is you can be forbidden to hold federal office ever again. In England, it was very wide and sometimes involved execution and things like that. But you have to have in government, I think, some way of saying, even if government official X is in a position where we can't try him in the normal sense of the word, my gosh, we still ought to be able to impeach him in the House and try him in the Senate. And even if we can only remove this person from office, and even if we can only ban them from holding federal office, by the way, it's two separate votes. One is to remove them from office. That takes a 2/3 vote. The other is to ban them from holding office. That's a 50% plus one vote. Even if you do only that, still in some way you are served justice. Now I realize that those who are watching this video, who may be in favor of Mr. Trump, will feel that this is an anti-Trump video. It's not. And those who dislike Mr. Trump will figure that I'm on their side. I'm not. I'm just trying to give you a straightforward explanation of whether or not you can impeach somebody who is no longer in office, or for that matter, impeach a private citizen. The same thing, basically. And the answer is, of course you can. I mean, if the House votes to impeach you, you're impeached. And if the Senate tries you, you're tried. It's up to them. And I think that's the simplest and easiest reading of the Constitution. And if the Senate could decide that, oh gosh, this is unconstitutional, Senate here in 2021 could decide that this is unconstitutional. And the next time we impeach somebody in it's 2035, they could decide that it is constitutional. So this is basically a matter of votes. It's a matter of politics. And this part of things, the Supreme Court is unlikely to get involved in. They've said on several occasions now that they don't want to get involved in things like this. In my next video, I'm going to talk about instances where the Supreme Court might get involved in an impeachment. Okay. And so the Supreme Court's not out of this entirely. 99.9% of the time, I'm sure they don't want anything to do with it, but there might be that 0.1% where the Supreme Court actually would get involved. Okay. And I'll talk about that in the next video. Everybody take care out there. Stay healthy and stay calm and stay safe. Okay. Bye-bye.